All right, everybody, welcome to our discussion in progress on the global chip shortage. I am your host, Mac Paladin. Welcome to Last Newsdesk on the left. The rest of the crew, of course, is here. Adam.
The things you miss in the pre-shows.
Indeed. Kevin's in the house.
Hello.
Petty fans being petty as usual.
Where am I?
And, of course, we got our ever-present, the Golics.
Yes.
At least you were not effervescent. That would be weird.
I had something in my mouth.
God, there was no need to defend yourself. Okay. Anyhow, this is a show. It's a story of stuff and things. And Adam, you pick the topic. Let's roll.
Oh. Well, the top line of this week's episode is complicated legacies, because we're starting off with the death of Colin Powell.
Indeed.
Yeah. He died a few days ago, apparently due to COVID-related illness.
Yeah.
More complications. Because, to the surprise of no one, the anti-vaxxer set immediately tried to use his death as, a couple to further their cause.
He was 84. He was 84 years old and had underlying problems. Come on, guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had blood cancer that pretty much shot up his immune system, and he was also fighting Parkinson's disease. So there you have it.
Also, he was at the, frankly, expiration date of the human body in general.
Wow. That was a little bit insensitive.
A little too much.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I probably phrased that badly.
No, that's okay. It's okay. Moving on. Sorry.
All I meant by that is that, when someone's in their 80s or older and they die, there doesn't necessarily need to be some big dramatic reason. They're within,
No.
Sometimes you just die of old age or complications from that.
No, that's fine. They're within the margin of error. I get it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's just move on from that. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway.
Which is why the whole thing fell apart in a few hours.
Yeah.
Because it turned out that both him and his wife were fully vaccinated, and also they apparently also got treatment. But while she responded well to it, he didn't because he has morbidity. So
right.
That was around.
Yep. And so the tagline of this episode is complicated legacies, because that definitely applies to Colin Powell. Because, let us be frank for a minute here. What is the legacy in terms of the popular remembrance with Colin Powell?
Everybody likes to talk about his leadership during the Gulf War, but I'm always concerned because his legacy is somewhat stained by his performance as Secretary of State with George W. Bush.
And that's what I'm getting at here. It's like, and I get that he wasn't, he wasn't Donald Rumsfeld. He wasn't Dick Cheney.
Right.
He wasn't even arguably George W. Bush. He wasn't, he wasn't one of the scheming masterminds of the Iraq War.
But he was the UN. He was the public face of it, and
it's not just that he was the public face for it, but it does. I know he came to regret, and this is probably why he got pushed out of the administration. But that doesn't change the fact that he went up to the fucking UN, with that fucking vial of anthrax, and fucking lied about it, or presented false information which he knew was faulty, and he still did the thing. That I don't care if he felt guilty about it. He still did the thing. He still was part of the mechanism. He could have said, no, I want to get better verification or something like that.
No, not at that time. I have to say it. There was no way that he could have done anything other than what he did, and just basically take one for the team at that time, because this is 2003. We need to remember this. There was no tolerance at all in this country for anything other than America, F yeah, at that time. And if Colin Powell came out there and stated for everybody the truth at that time, well, let's just say that it would go into some pretty dark places.
Probably, like, I suppose there's no good answer, but it's, once again, he's part. He was the gunman for the heist. You just can't give.
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. Yes.
I just cannot agree with that standpoint, because he was part of the misinformation campaign. If he was unwitting, so be it. But once again, he's still part of the reason why we ended up in Iraq. It's like, I cannot ignore the direct action. I will not ignore the direct action. It's like, maybe he didn't have a choice, but he still did the thing, and I will still condemn him for doing that thing. I would say it completely obliterates his legacy, but it's like, it's what we remember him for. It's why people, it's why War Criminal was trending on the day of his death. He's still part of one of the biggest blunders in American history. And yeah, it sucks, because had that happened, believe it or not, like, there is a chance he would have been the first black president of the United States.
No, I doubt that. I doubt that myself. I doubt that. I don't think he would have.
I'm like, different times.
Not even then. Not even then. I don't think even then. I think even a black Republican wouldn't make it. Not even Colin Powell.
Like, well, I suppose we'll never know. Because he never.
They wanted him to run in '96 because it was pretty much nobody except for Old Man Dole, and Colin Powell said, no, the country's not ready for it, and I don't want to be a politician. Well, he knew for a fact that the country wouldn't be able to elect him.
I suppose we'll never know.
Yeah.
Like, it's a what if. Like, you could make the argument for and against it, but it doesn't really matter, because he never gave the thought any serious consideration. Like,
no, he gave it serious consideration in '96, but then he decided to go, nope, not going to do it.
Okay, I'm gonna stop everybody for a second. Is everybody actually in the chat? Because I don't see you in the chat, Kevin or Adam. I need everybody moderating on this one, just in case, because we do have a couple of viewers there, but they're not registering.
All right.
I'm here.
Galax is there.
All
right.
I'm moving to moderator view.
Anyway, but yeah, like I said, his most famous action is, his trip to the UN. Like, you just can't Martinize that away, no matter how much guilt he felt. So
no, I'm not saying at all that's. I'm not trying to erase it at all. I'm saying, look, it's there. It's the front of his legacy, but it's like, it has to be put into fucking context. But at the same time, it's like, you can't erase it. I'm not arguing to erase it. I'm not arguing to put it to the side. It's just,
no.
Well, he went up there basically to take one for the team because, there was no way in heck that he was going to be able to get away with going up against the, at that time, pretty popular president.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I mean,
I can see the argument for that. I'm
not at all saying that he should be defended for that. I'm just saying, look, the fact of the matter is that he and probably everybody believed the garbage that was put out. Let's be frank. Probably everybody believed the BS until it turned out to be BS, and then it was actually lies and war crimes and all that type of stuff. But at the time, the vast majority of people in this country bought the garbage. They thought it was going to be clear cut and dry like in 91, and it turns out, no, that's not the case.
Like, anyway,
I was 91, so...
Yeah, I will say, not the only controversial legacy he has. It's just, this is the one everyone knows. Like, he was, like, before he was the Secretary of Defense, he was the chief... the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Which meant he oversaw some very controversial invasions, specifically the invasion of Panama in 1989.
Ah, okay. Yeah. I was going to say, what's that? I'm thinking like, Somalia? Oh, no, Panama 89,
Yeah.
Like, if you don't know what that one was, that's when we invaded Panama and arrested their president on drug trafficking charges.
Noriega.
Yeah, Manuel Noriega. Because that is the thing we can do when we have the most powerful military on Earth.
And back when it was still Cold War time, and the CIA was able to invade any country it wanted without any pushback internally.
Right.
Oh, and it's not just the Cold War, but this is, we're in prime war on drugs territory here.
Yeah, that too. That played on top,
Yeah, I'm like, this is the era of dare and just say no and all that.
All those good things that actually increase drug use among children, yes.
Or did absolutely nothing to curb it, which was supposed to do, because it's like, oh, it's not easy.
Well, Dare actively made things worse.
Yeah, there's actually a really good Adam Ruins Everything episode about this entire thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
The war on drugs being a cynical attempt by Nixon to basically legally redline. There's a few other things going on there, not to mention the fact that it was prohibition light.
Well, yeah. Well, it's also the war on drugs got supercharged in the 80s thanks to crack cocaine.
Yeah, because crack cocaine was not just a urban problem anymore. It then went into Middle America, and when that happens, suddenly it's a problem.
Well, but it was mainly seen as a urban problem, read a black problem, and that's why the criminal penalties for crack cocaine until this year was so much more intense.
Right.
Yeah,
well, what I'm saying is that it was a urban problem, but then it started to slip into Middle America, and once it started to slip into Middle of America, then it became a problem that requires everybody to go kick ass. But for like a couple of years, it was just an urban problem, and it's like, oh well, it's just those urban cities, whatever.
Well, once
then
again,
it started to slip into Middle America. So
it wasn't that much of a problem, considering they just rescinded the sentence disparity like a couple of months ago.
Yeah, but I'm talking like back then. It's like initially it's an urban problem, and then it started to slip into Middle America, and all of a sudden, oh, it's a problem. It's a real problem, and we need to start putting some boots in asses and start doing
this was
absolutely nothing.
This goes back to the same criticism of Reagan that he didn't acknowledge AIDS because it was a gay problem until all of a sudden it was a problem with straights.
Right.
And in my opinion, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Like it started in 82 and 83, and nobody gave a damn. In 94, didn't give a damn. And then all of a sudden, you started to see Reagan's old Hollywood buddies get it, and all of a sudden,
it wasn't until about October of 1987 that he even acknowledged it by name.
Yep.
Yeah, and he started to become very serious about it after Rock Hudson got it, and that was apparently one of his buddies. So
the conservative mantra.
Yeah.
Unless it affects me personally, it doesn't exist, or it's not. It's literally not my problem.
Although that's also to a certain extent, as we've come to find out.
Right. Anyway, getting back.
Nowadays it seems more like as long as it doesn't affect me, and even if it does affect me, even if I can deny it, at least in public.
Yeah.
That's more a modern problem, though. Like.
Anyway.
Back to the subject at hand.
Yeah, getting back to Colin Powell, his other big overseeing of operation that was Desert Storm. Gulf War Part 1.
Yeah, Gulf War 1, yeah.
Which is far less controversial. And there were people who were against it.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy against it back then, but it was
not really because
not really considering that it was more cut and dry with that situation.
Well, okay, what happened? Iraq invaded another sovereign nation. I know there's actually a disparity.
One that was also nominally an ally of the United States.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, we were acting on a UN resolution.
Correct.
Yeah. That was a key difference between Gulf War I and Gulf War II. We initially sought backing of the UN, but when they didn't back the Gulf War Part 2, we said fuck it, we're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, he's like the UN wasn't sold this time because, well, duh. But it's like, you know what? Screw you. We got other countries that are willing to kick ass. We're gonna kick ass. What are you gonna do? Stop us? You don't have an army.
Well, I mean, that's the difference between having a president who was a spy master and kind of a diplomat versus
a former CIA head.
Yeah, versus his idiot son.
Right.
His idiot inflatable son, who surrounded himself from people from that said spy master's administration, who were not happy with the fact that said spy master decided that there was a line.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to pal along with his idiot son, who was probably too drunk to figure out that there was a line, and decided to say, "Fuck that line, I got it."
Well, the other thing you got to keep in mind is that HW was also a former military officer who had actually served in a war.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
there's also another difference there in that he'd seen the horrors of war firsthand, even though he was a combat pilot. I mean, he saw people shot down, he saw people die, he saw things explode.
And yet the funny thing is that he still surrounded himself with people who could care less, and then his son brought some of those same people back for a second round.
It's not a defense. It's just stating why he had a line. It was because he had seen that.
Yeah.
Virtually anyone who had ever actually served in combat has a more compassionate view towards judicious use of military force.
Yes, and when you see people who don't have that experience come out there and say that the suggestion that we should worry about it is BS, you know that they haven't been in that situation.
Yep.
That they don't have a personal connection to combat operations of any kind. Mm-hmm. And so it's basically they think that it's easy to do a war, easy to win a war, easy to do all of this, and don't give a goddamn about people who say this shit is fucking complex.
Right.
Yep.
It's complex. It's hard.
By the time Colin Powell was...
We're America. Boom, boom. We can kill them all.
Yeah,
we can beat them all.
By the time Colin Powell had served in the W administration, I mean, the simple fact of the matter is that the face of warfare had changed dramatically since Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yep. We're just not used to fighting real wars anymore. So nobody knew what it looked like.
No.
And they got this weird disconnect from, I don't know.
No, I'll other way around.
Oh.
It's we're really good at fighting conventional warfare.
Yeah.
We're really bad at irregular warfare.
Unfortunately, the current world political situation has made conventional warfare basically obsolete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more stateless actors in play than.
Well, that's what I was talking about, was that nobody knew how to fight a modern war because it's complicated and it's ugly and it's political and it's stupid.
I mean, that's war in general, but even more so because irregular warfare has so many more complications.
It has a lot more moving parts.
Yeah. The enemy can hide in plain sight. That was a big one that us over in Vietnam and in Iraq.
Not having a clearly defined enemy.
Yep.
Right.
Having allies suddenly become enemies midstream.
Yep.
And vice versa.
And them not being controlled by a singular entity. Like, usually when you're talking about a situation, maybe there's like a general, there's a command structure. A lot of cases these days, that's not the case. There may be a command structure, but it's not as firm as you'd like it to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the popular stories, that you see in the movies where everything is just everything is straightforward, It's complicated.
It probably was. Yeah. Once upon a time, it probably was, but it's not that case anymore.
Anyway, once again, I think we're getting off the track with Colin Powell. But, that's kind of the high spots of his actual governmental service. There's a lot more here. We really don't have the time or the wherewithal to go over. But, these are complicated legacies.
Yeah.
Once again, it's
nobody's perfect.
Yeah, and it's also you can't really boil him down to an evil character like you can, let's say, Dick Cheney.
Yeah, not with Cheney. He's not Cheney or Rummy.
Yeah,
that's just the fact.
Yeah, but once again, unclean hands.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even he admitted that, so it's not like he's been like, "Oh, I'm innocent." No, it's like, "No, I did it, and I regret it." It's more that you could say for everybody else in that group.
Yeah, but it's also worth noting that he maybe not formally left the Republican Party, but he endorsed Obama at a pivotal point. And that in 2008. That was a big deal. Like,
and it wasn't just because. And it was because that year, McCain was running, so you would think, oh, well, maybe they would get all of the military people. And here comes Colin Powell going like, yeah, I would be fine, but, people in your party are being Islamophobic shitheads. I can't roll with that. And you're not getting rid of them. You're not pushing them out. So I'm supposed to support your guy? I don't think so, okay?
Right.
Yeah. You talk about Trump. Sarah Palin started this up. Let's not beat around the bush.
No.
Sarah Palin walked so Trump could ride.
Yeah. Speaking of complicated legacies, of course you have McCain, which to any of my former military family members, you cannot speak ill of this man. And I'm like, you could see even in the 2008 campaign that all of the stuff that they were having him say, even though he said it anyway and he was complicit in it, it didn't sit well with him.
Yeah.
Look,
here's the problem though. The choice of vice president is literally the only personal choice that a presidential candidate makes. Like, everything else is usually done by, surrogates, your campaign managers and campaign team. A lot of what's done in the course of a campaign is done by them. The first major decision of any presumptive president is to choose your running mate. Yes, you're given lists. Yes, you're given the choices. But at the end of the day, you make the call. You make the decision. And John was given the options that he had, and he chose terribly based upon a gut reaction basically at a snapshot in time. He chose Sarah Palin because he wanted to jump on the Puma movement, aka the people who were against Hillary Clinton. He chose recklessly, and it cost him.
Yep.
Anyway, once again, I think we're done with this topic because we keep getting off the topic.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think anybody here wants to talk about this.
No, but I'm like,
I don't think
we had to address it because
it was a big subject of the week. Yeah.
And
but you see, all of these other things kind of revolve around this. It's not like these items that we brought up are happening in a vacuum separate from the existence of, or now lack thereof, of Colin Powell.
I get that, but we keep delving more and more off the subject,
Yeah.
and we're getting on to like McCain now. That's where I think we're getting truly off topic, because this is about Colin Powell, not John McCain. Anyway, we should probably move on because there is other news to address.
All right.
Because the January 6th commission is back in the news. I'm like, and God, the people who keep droning on about nothing will happen, like literally things happened, like, because it's just it is a process. I suppose, yes, you could whine about the process. It's not going to make it go any faster.
No.
I'm like, because the House, the Senate, they have their procedures, and they are very, very much about their procedures. Like,
well, I can tell you this much. I'm very much more excited about the 14th Amendment, Section 3 than I was about 25, Section 4.
Yeah.
It's a much more realistic prospect, and it doesn't require a tribunal.
Right.
Yeah.
What about a quadribunal or a pentabunal?
Well, I mean, think about it though.
Whatever.
The only federal office that is really heavily laid out in the Constitution is the presidency, as far as the procedure for removal. Now, as far as asshole senators who participated in treason, when they passed the 14th Amendment and added Section 3 to it, they streamlined that whole process because, well, frankly, they didn't want ex-Confederates serving in government.
Right.
I mean, ostensibly, that was the idea behind that, and so the whole process is streamlined. They can literally just levy charges and then send the Justice Department in to arrest them. They don't require a vote to get rid of them.
Right. But
the House of Representatives serving as a grand jury instead of as simply those levying charges.
Right. But we're not really talking about that.
It's trending. I'm just saying.
Right, but that's in relation to a representative who just got charged for lying about foreign contacts. Like, in regards to the January 6th committee, they were in the news yesterday because they just voted unanimously to hold Stephen K. Bannon in contempt of Congress. Like,
beautiful.
Yes. Well, like, the people who are going, nothing will happen.
Well, it's
literally.
But wasn't he trying to fucking claim like someone else's executive privilege that he wasn't even officially associated with at the time?
Yes, a vague assertion of executive privilege which doesn't exist.
It's
not to mention Donnie the Orange up there trying to declare executive privilege like he's trying to serve us fucking 3-month-old milk.
Well, he's also like suing the National Archives and everyone to stop the release of documents. Like,
Everyone's just laughing at him.
Well, it's also Liz Cheney noted in her remarks yesterday that given the resistance that Bannon and Trump are showing, that they think that the commission thinks that they are, they were personally involved in planning this attack. That's what this is the kind of thing that the committee is planning to get to the bottom of, and that's
Am I supposed to feign shock here?
Well,
it's not what you know; it's what you can prove. These are
fair.
It's not knowing the truth; it's getting the facts. That's what the January 6th committee is doing, and that's what they're doing with Bannon. Bannon was subpoenaed to hand over all relevant documents related to January 6th, and they even cited some podcasts he went on pre-January 6th where he mentioned words of warning about January 6th.
Uh-huh.
The January 6th committee thinks he was very much involved in the planning of the attack,
Mm-hmm.
in some fashion. They don't know what capacity and stuff like, that's why they want the documents. But Bannon has wholesale refused, and he's trying to stonewall, and the January 6th commission is having none of it. Like, that's why, that's why they voted. And to explain the process, they voted yesterday. The Senate Rules Committee voted. The House Rules Committee voted today. Tomorrow, the full body of the House
Was
will
the Senate vote today, or was it yesterday? Because I remember it was last night that they had that meeting. Was the vote today?
No, the Rules Committee was today.
Oh, the Rules Committee. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I said, this is why I'm saying this whole thing is a process, because it's not just, oh hey, you send the fucking U.S. Marshals to arrest Bannon. No, it's like first he had to actually commit the crime.
Right.
It's like, you can't really, we're not in fucking Minority Report. You don't arrest people for pre-crime. It's like so you
murder. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's like you actually, at the very least, you have to attempt the murder. Like,
right.
At the bare minimum, you have to plan it.
Yeah, my point is, he had to actually miss the meeting, miss the deadlines to be in contempt of Congress. That's how that works. So,
Yeah.
Well, as I was trying to say before, though, my only contention was that this is the first domino to fall.
Right.
And the end game here is whether or not we invoke Amendment 14, Section 3 on various members of both the House and the Senate.
Right.
Which is a much more streamlined process than impeaching and removing and then ultimately indicting a president. It's a much less convoluted process. They literally just have to accuse him, and justice goes up the hill and arrests them.
Yep. They don't even have to be not a member of Congress anymore.
Right.
They can, members of Congress can be indicted and arrested.
This is specifically for acts of treason. This is acts against the state that this is applicable to. Obviously, they can't just willy-nilly say, well, we accuse the entire Republican Party of sedition. They can't just use it as a political weapon. It's much better laid out than the original constitutional process for removing a president, I think.
Right.
It's a little more thoughtful in this particular case.
Well, it's also they made the presidential impeachment such a high bar because they didn't want it to be basically supplemented by Congress.
Right.
I can see why they made it the way that they did. Maybe it worked a bit too well, but that's another discussion for another time. Getting back to what's actually going on in the House. Anyway, tomorrow the full House will vote on whether or not to hold Stephen K. Bannon in contempt.
Right.
And this is the vote that ultimately will count, because when that's certified, that's when the charge of contempt of Congress gets handed over to the Department of Justice, specifically the Attorney General of D.C., who can decide whether or not to prosecute. And for those who, once again, are whining, nothing will happen. Okay, if it were still the Trump DOJ, I would wholeheartedly agree with you. That was a problem with the impeachments and those subpoenas. They were relying on a Trumpified DOJ to enforce subpoenas about impeachment of the president. And given how corrupt, the whole apparatus became, it's not a surprise that the DOJ did not enforce shit. But, now we have Biden and, Merrick Garland in charge of the DOJ, and they are prosecuting some 600 seditionists. Like, seriously,
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
This is not going to happen fast.
No, the idea that they would not pursue charges against Stephen Bannon. I'm not seeing the logic here. Like, help me out. Why would nothing happen to Steve Bannon? Why would the DOJ decline to prosecute?
He's an agitator. He it's like he's used up all of his 9 lives.
Yeah. It's like I'm not seeing where the actual morosity comes from.
Not to mention the fact that he's not exactly a Trump loyalist anymore. So I mean, it's not like he's going to get any. It's not like he's going to get any cover from Donald Trump either.
No. It's basically going to be more of an institutionalized thinking of, why go hard after what happened in the past? Forget about it. It's not worth it. It could make things worse.
I mean, that's the thing about every crime, though. They all happened in the past.
Yeah, but
back to Adam's pre-crime quip. You can't say, "Well, I foresee in the future that this crime was committed, therefore we're going to arrest you preemptively." I mean, the logic behind the crime is in the past thing is nonsense. It's like, when homicide detectives speak for the dead, they're already dead. It's, they're already dead, so why are we worried about this whole murder business,
Well,
so, like I said, I just don't see a reason why Bannon would get held off here. And it's also, the January 6th committee getting disbanded. If that happens, that's still a year and change away.
Not until 2023.
Yeah, this is a process. But it's not a process that's going to take a year.
Right.
Like, it's like I've heard, like, the general timeline is probably at latest spring 2022. Like,
Yeah.
And the Dems will be in charge by then. So,
The what?
I said the Dems will still be in charge at that point.
Yeah. Like, so things are going to happen to Steve Bannon. Like, I'm pretty sure about that.
We're just hoping by that point more people get.
Well, here's the thing. Apparently, like, he's the only one who's doing a full defy job of the
committee. Yeah.
Like everyone else, they're actually complying because they don't want to get. That shows there's some real teeth here.
Right.
Although it'll be interesting to see what happens if they do indeed try to subpoena more people, which I think they probably will. This is probably the first wave of a couple of them over the course of the next month.
That is certainly a question. Like, and it's especially, because up to the Orange Screaming Madman has been mentioned as getting a subpoena for this.
Well, you also don't have jokers like Gomert and Jordan trying to rush things along and then getting ejected. They've already been ejected from the entire process permanently.
Well, that's why the Republicans own gold this so hard. Because
that's the thing. Because if they had a bipartisan committee, guess what? They probably would have been on it.
Yeah, because here's the thing. The Dems actually offered up their chance to cajole and obstruct and all that shit with the bipartisan committee that didn't pass the Senate. Like, and I actually thank the Republicans for that.
Yep.
Because that meant we were going to get a real committee. And I'm also I know how the left feels about Nancy Pelosi, but she knows that fucking Jim Jordan doesn't belong on this committee. Because he's probably going to get a subpoena.
Kevin put him up. And Nancy said, "No, screw that mess. Get that out of here." No.
After what he did during the impeachments, the only possible outcome there would have been a repeat.
Yeah, he was going to be a clown, and we ain't here for no clown shit. Okay.
That's why they got
Yes.
and it's good that they got Republicans onto this commission because
Yeah.
it bounces off the whole witch hunt narrative.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, but they're still gonna put it forward and call
obviously,
Liz and Adam rhinos. But yeah, I mean, fact of the matter is that
but
there
there's
are
still
Republicans on
Republicans.
here. So
Yeah,
yes, yes,
there's still Republicans that gives a lot more precedence in the media and shit than just having a commission of Democrats.
right. Having a Republican as the co-chair.
Yes. So, like I said, this worked out pretty beautifully, if I'm being honest.
Right.
That's why I didn't sweat for a second when okay, they want to knock that down? Okay, we'll get a real investigation. And we seem to have a real investigation, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, congratulations, Republicans. You walked into that one.
Yep.
You know?
Dems are playing chess and Republicans are playing checkers.
Well, better hope this committee doesn't subpoena some of your own, because that could easily happen.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll probably revisit them when they do more actions.
Stay tuned on this.
Yeah. Anyway, I suppose to begin the transition to the entertainment file, what's going on with the IETSE strike?
Well, apparently it's IATSE, first of all.
IATSE.
It's
rhymes with Yahtzee. It's got 5 letters too.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So IATSE and the producers/studios came to a tentative agreement. The membership is not so happy about it, and this could probably be a situation where the members hate it, but it still passes because the way that these things are apparently voted on is kind of a mini electoral college.
Yeah.
Which, this is basically going to turn into a situation where Hollywood's kind of exposed. It's like, I wonder why Hollywood never strikes so much. Oh, that's why. So what they were fighting for was apparently improved working conditions. The improvements on that front aren't as strong as the people wanted to. But
I mean, isn't that the nature of compromise, though? It's a situation where everybody leaves unsatisfied.
It's more of a thing where the whole entire thing is.
I mean,
it's more that they got a strike authorization vote based upon the fact that that everybody in IATSE has been so focused on the fact that they've been working so long of hours, and it seems that that wasn't a thing in these negotiations, and a lot of people are pissed about that. So it's not simply a case of you don't get what you want; it's a case of we wanted something and you didn't even talk about it. That's the difference. Like, if they talked about it and they got, a amount of hours that doesn't fit, okay, fine. But it's like, you barely talked about what we became passionate about here.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens when COVID is finally over, whether or not they'll revert back to having more normal hours, because some of the bizarro world hours are as a result of COVID protocols. And one of the more complicated issues here, of course, how we're always talking about how this director left a project because they couldn't meet the time frame required, and there's rights issues and this and that and the other thing. It's like Hollywood operates on a schedule that doesn't take into consideration the human toll.
Yes.
And it's because of certain legal things that are certain contractual obligations that are in place that once again ignore the human cost, and I can't, even though I'm quote unquote in the industry, I still can't wrap my head around all of the complexities of it. And that is not at all a defense of producers. It's a I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, so I'm looking at this entire situation as in askance and saying, okay.
Yeah, it's look, it's the fact that people Like, people are being worked to the bone here, and yeah, that's probably largely because of COVID. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of this stuff predates COVID.
Yeah.
You know, COVID's only enhanced the situation there. But it's
Yeah.
more like these things have always been here. It's just now it's more of a concern because what COVID did was pretty much make everybody realize, oh shit, the working conditions that I've been in for 10 to 20, 30 years are absolute garbage, and I don't want this anymore. You want to know why there's so-called labor shortages around? That's why. It's because people realize, you know what, this actually sucks. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, the pay's great, but it's like, what's good is pay if I'm in a work environment that's shit? You know?
Yeah.
It's like I'm working, what, like 40, 50 hours a week. I'm being treated like garbage by my bosses and by people who I interact with on a day-to-day basis.
I think the issue was that they were working 60 to 100 hours a week. Is part
of
the problem.
I'm just
40 to 50 would be a typical manager's schedule. You know?
Right, but I'm just trying to basically put a bottom line here. But yeah, it's like it's much more than that. But it's like I'm working long, extended hours. I'm driving. I basically risk myself being in a car crash after I get off of work every week.
No, I was just trying to. What I was trying to figure out in my mind was what would make the producers say to themselves, "We need to dig in on this and refuse these concessions." That's the thing that got me is okay. The working conditions are unsafe and people are dying. That should be a no-brainer. So what is stopping them from saying, "Yeah, let's go ahead and loosen things up." Let's stretch out our schedules, and if it takes longer to make a series, so be it. It's like, and apparently that didn't even enter into their thinking.
Right, but the thing is that for a lot of these things, in order to make cool changes like this, it does cost money.
Right.
That's the unfortunate part of this, and it's like they don't want to lose money, but it's like, and unfortunately in the society, in order to help people, you have to lose money, and people don't want to understand the concept of return on investment.
Right. It's just like when we talk about wages in like fast food or whatever, and when they increase the minimum wage, they say, "Well, I'm sorry, but because of the effect on short-term profits, we're going to have to affect the menu board pricing to offset these wage increases." And it's like, if you didn't do that, though, your profits would actually skyrocket long term, but you can't see past the short term because you're literally operating on a we might fold in 6 months kind of budget, and that comes to light when these situations arise. Is that we've already crossed the Rubicon.
Right.
It's like these. You suddenly realize that there are so many businesses in America and around the world. It's not just an American problem, but it's more advanced in America because of the way we handle capitalism.
Yeah.
That these companies are really operating under the assumption that they may not be here in 6 months. And that means that they're playing games. It means that they're playing at being businesses. They're pretending at being businesses because they don't have a long-term capital vision.
Yeah, a lot of problems with today's society, and not just here but everywhere, is basically the fact that we're not really good at long-term strategic thinking, or we don't want to do long-term strategic thinking. It's basically we don't want to understand that. Okay. We might get hurt now in the short term, but in the long term, as the overall market eventually comes into alignment with these new changes, because of the fact that we got ahead of the game, we'll benefit the most from it. But nobody wants to think about that.
Right.
They're thinking not 6 years, but 6 months, or more to the point here. What's going to happen in the next fiscal quarter? Instead of 6 years down the road, it's more actually like 6 weeks down the road. How is this going to affect us with this fiscal quarter, or stuff like that?
Anyway. Once again, this is a problem we can trace back to the 1980s.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, if you've never, this is a term, the shareholder revolution.
Mm-hmm.
This is a thing that came into prominence in the 1980s.
Right.
And that is the focus on businesses maximizing shareholder value, and not trends towards the short term.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big shift that happened, and that is why things are the way they are, at least here in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, God forbid those common stockholders don't get their 61-cent dividend,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is then reinvested into the company. They never actually see a dime of that money unless they suffer capital gains.
Uh-uh.
Well, yeah,
I'm somewhat familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. My minor was in business administration, so
Mhm.
I know some of these things.
Right.
People could do well to take a few business classes so they could understand this stuff in sharp focus.
And also actually hear a business professor tell you, no, you don't need to know what the people under you are doing. You just need to manage. To actually hear a professor say that is a little different than hearing some asshole on some podcast talk about it.
Oh yeah. Or when a business professor tells you flat out the goal of a company is to maximize EPS, earnings per share.
Mhm.
That's it. Like, he was German.
That's impressive. That's truly impressive. It's oddly appropriate though that the German economics professor would talk about things in sort of Nietzschean terms.
Right.
Nothing matters except for shareholder happiness, which is a societal construct.
Yeah.
It wasn't his actual personal belief, because he also was he was a staunch environmentalist as well.
That's impressive. All of that is impressive to me.
It's apparently not that uncommon in Germany. It's a fascinating land. Let's just say.
I think back to that professor that talks about the sort of communistic viewpoint of the ideas of the workers, because they create the most value for the corporation, are actually the owners.
Mm-hmm.
I think that came out of Harvard. That's some pretty radical thinking right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on where you are, because the Green Bay Packers, community ownership isn't a foreign concept in this country.
Well, it would be to hear the conservatives talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm just saying.
We're practically Venezuela.
Yeah.
Soviet Russia.
I'm not talking about from a conservative perspective.
No, I know, but I mean that's the thing that to hear these pundits tell it, that sounds like that's the way it must be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, because it's against their interests.
Wrongly so, but
I or you would think, but remember, a person's paycheck is oftentimes dependent on what they don't know or can't see,
right?
Or however that quote goes. But anyway, shifting forward,
it's easy to get people on board with these crazy ideas because of what my old boss used to say, and that's that you never mess with a man's paycheck. You never mess with another man's paycheck. The instant you do that, that creates heartache and discontent.
Right.
And that's what they play to.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's one reason why universal health care isn't happening in this country. It's a lot of union people oppose that because, well, guess what their unions do? They negotiate health benefits on their behalf. And
it's like, but imagine getting paid an extra $10 an hour because you don't have health benefits. They're already taken care of for you. And you could still get secondary. See, this is the thing about the whole Canadian system, for example. Dental, vision, all that other stuff is still considered elective, even under nationalized health care. There's if you have gastric bypass surgery to save your life and then need cosmetic surgery in order to get rid of the extra folds of skin, well, that's not covered.
That's
That's what supplemental insurance is for. The insurance companies will still make a fucking fortune. That's the part that's so appalling about all this, is the idea that private insurance will suddenly die because of universal health care. We know that's not true because other countries have both, and they work just fine.
Well, keep in mind, we're talking about a difference between universal healthcare and single-payer healthcare. That's what a lot of the very online leftists want to push for. You know, the complete death of private health insurance. And I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily the best idea. So, once again, Republicans exist.
Right.
You want to put that in the hands of Republicans, like, that's always a concern. Like, anyway.
Moving on.
But, yeah, so getting into pure entertainment news this week, the DC Fandom 2021 happened on Saturday, which is, well, the big presentation of all things DC related. Let's see, we got the first look at Black Adam, which is the Rock, Dwayne Johnson's weird passion project.
Yeah.
I don't.
I assume that he read Captain Marvel as a kid and that was his favorite character.
I don't know. Like, Black Adam is like the diametric opposite of The Rock.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, not The Rock. It might be the opposite of Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
The Rock was a heel.
Yeah, he did play a heel once upon a time. So it's like, look, I mean, if anybody could pull this off, it's Dwayne. Okay.
He can play it both ways. He can play it both ways.
Yes, he can. Yes, he certainly can. He played heel multiple times.
Oh yeah.
So it's not a case of, you know, it's opposite from The Rock. If only if you think of The Rock as this, you know,
the question is not whether. Go ahead.
It's weird to me, not because he's a bad guy, because he's fucking stoic. Like, that's not The Rock.
True.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably because of the roles that he's got.
I mean, it kind of varies.
I mean, I've seen bits. I've seen bits. The question is not whether or not he can do it. The question is whether he can do it sustained.
Yeah, like, remember,
that's a good question, but I think it has a lot more to do with the fact that in a lot of the roles he's been given, it's basically been playing a stoic character. He's had some roles where he isn't stoic, so it's not like a case. It's basically a case of what is the material he's given or what the material he makes for himself. So,
yeah,
the Rock, Dwayne Johnson has always had a problem in Hollywood that he got typecast into these, you know, Arnold Schwarzeneggerian roles.
Yeah, Scorpion King comes to mind.
And so for him to be able to break out of that and do something different, he had to kind of earn his bones, as they say in the mafia.
Ironically, he didn't show the range Arnold Schwarzenegger did. I know that sounds weird, but we remember Kindergarten Cop. We do not remember the Tooth Fairy.
No.
And we're trying to forget Junior.
Yeah. Right. But look, it's basically you are what the material is given to you. And then at that time he wasn't into Hollywood that deep to where he could do stuff on his own.
But let's be brutally honest about Schwarzenegger, though. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is that he kind of Leslie Nielsen'd it. He didn't actually change the way he did things. He simply played the straight man.
He started doing it ironically.
He started doing it ironically. Yeah. He basically started presenting himself the way Nielsen did. He plays exactly the same characters, but it's funny because it's absurd in how serious he is in these scenarios. Yeah. You know, and that's how Schwarzenegger did it. Did he really show range? I don't think he showed range until he was no longer governor of California.
I'm speaking facetiously.
Well, I mean that too, but I'm just saying, you know, maybe not.
Anyway,
he didn't change anything. He just changed the types of movies that these similar roles were played in.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, up next we have Batman's The Flash, starring Batman.
Batman the Flashpoint. Yeah.
I mean, there are like 3 Batman supposed to be in this, including Michael Keaton.
Well, there are also 3 Flashes. It looked like so. But still, yeah, I know what you mean.
What is being hyped up? Not the Flash.
Not to be confused with the James Pattinson project, also called The Batman.
The Robin Pattinson.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit.
The Robert Pattinson, yeah.
But this is most likely Flashpoint and the official multiverse connector.
Yes. Which is going to be very interesting considering everything.
But it's like, you know who needed more press? Fucking Batman.
Yeah.
Enough, does he? Like,
well, I mean, that kind of fits with the character too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, let's be brutally honest. You know, Robert Downey Jr. did not play Iron Man / Tony Stark as he's portrayed in the comics.
No, he absolutely didn't. I mean, first of all,
he played him more like Batman.
Yeah.
Where on one side he's really flashy and flamboyant, and on the other side, you know, he's somewhat stoic and serious and scientific and a detective and just all of these amazing things. I mean, he really turned him into Batman.
Since the movies, the Marvel Comics have also somewhat altered their portrayal of Tony Stark, including such groundbreaking traits as making him remotely likable.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's saying something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a huge step.
Yeah, speaking of likability injections, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
This is a topic.
It still has Amber Heard in it, so I don't know.
Yep.
Well, I'm referring more to Jason Momoa. Like,
I know,
look,
yeah, he's the least of the problems there.
I know, but it's like going to it's like swallowing the pill of going to see a Fantastic Beasts movie because Eddie Redmayne is in it, not because it's written by J.K. Rowling.
Yeah. It's more about Jason Momoa being shockingly magnetic, which is the first time that ever happened with Jason Momoa.
I don't know. His commercials since the first Aquaman came out have been pretty hilarious. I find him to be very likable.
I'm saying he's doing a far sight better than the Clash of the Titans remake.
Oof. Yeah. Well, I mean, that was just a bad movie, period.
I know. I'm just saying he got,
that's not his fault.
Right, but, Aquaman wasn't a great movie either, but this one made $1 billion. Like, on the, apparently Jason Momoa is that fuckable now.
Wow.
I mean,
what a way to put that.
I think it's the most honest way I can put it.
I don't think that was the problem. I don't think that was the problem.
No,
you don't need to talk to be fuckable. In fact, the more you speak, the less likely that becomes.
I mean, he's not far off, I don't think. I don't think he's that far off.
I mean, look, once again, Aquaman, $1 billion.
Yeah.
No.
You don't get $1 billion for nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, next up is Milestone Media, the Milestone Initiative, which is something I'm interested in seeing develop because, okay, if you don't know what Milestone Comics is, you probably are most familiar with Static Shock. Probably the most famous character to emerge from that imprint / comic. It was the first black owned comics thing.
Yeah.
And they're seeking to not just bring back Static, they want to bring Icon and Rocket into the mainstream hardware. They're planning on having Blood Syndicate return. I mean, I'm not overly familiar with Milestone. I've read some of their stuff a while ago, but this was really groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah,
especially in like the 90s. So getting more of that in more media is generally going to be a good thing. But this isn't just about comics and movies, but we got Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. The first game showed at the event. This is the Rocksteady Studios.
Also, Peacemaker looks fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what came after. Like, John Cena seems to be doing well for himself. Like,
yeah.
well,
Imagine that another heel making it as an actor.
Well, another person from the House of McMahon leaving the House of McMahon to get big in Hollywood, which is actually going to hurt the House of McMahon over time.
John Cena was a heel for a very short period of time.
Very short, yes.
He's known as being the mega babyface.
Oh God, yes.
God, what, 10 years? Like,
yes,
maybe more.
He's definitely, and I really don't. He's basically like that other big mega babyface that that I refuse to say his name, but you know who he is.
Well, it's also
a century version of that.
Some of us don't follow wrestling.
Yeah, well, it's like when he played a heel, he wasn't Peacemaker. He was basically Slim Shady. I'm not joking. He played the white rapper.
No, he was a white rapper. That was his gimmick.
Yeah, I'm like,
you want to know what his theme song is from the actual album that he cut?
Yeah,
that's him. It's him. Yes, he's the only person inside of the WWE who has a theme song that he actually sang himself or rapped himself. Yes, that's That's a song from his actual studio album.
Will the real Slim Shady please sit down?
Pretty much. Yes.
Let's see. We got Superman. I'm trying to remember the animated thing. Just with Superman, which is coming in 2023.
Yeah, 23.
Yeah. And this is apparently a real thing that's going to exist. There's going to be a DC League of Super Pets game.
Dear God.
Like, yeah, I'm like,
sure, why not?
Didn't I see that they're going to make a movie out of that?
Maybe, but this is a video game.
And it's not even a mobile game.
Yeah. Oh, it's a tie-in with the movie, which is hitting screens May 20th, 2022.
Dear God.
I've heard worse ideas from DC and movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's probably going to be inoffensively bad. Think one of the Beethoven movies or something.
Yeah, it's probably going to be one of those things where it's not for you.
Yeah. I'm like, and we got Doom Patrol, which is something I have not watched. Like, but it's getting a season 4. Right?
Oh. I've heard good things about it. It's like one of those kind of sleeper hits, I guess.
Yeah. It's not plunking down for HBO Max because it's really
See,
expensive.
I have it as part of my Cox Cable package. I got roped into this deal where I've got HBO, Stars, Cinemax, and Showtime, and all that shit. So it's like so we have HBO Max by proxy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've now seen all this stuff. I've seen the Snyder Cut. I've seen a lot of things that they have to offer, and I'm just like, I mean, woo! I got the Jump on Sesame Street episodes.
Well, there are things still to watch. The Sandman is not one of them. Like,
oh really?
Well, the Sandman is a Netflix project.
Yeah.
Like, that owes to the fact that HBO passed on the project, so Netflix picked it up, which is still weird because
that's surprising that DC would ever let anything go.
It's probably more of a case of, hey, HBO passed on it. Anybody else want it? Netflix. Hey, we want a piece of that DC. Fine, come here. Okay.
Well, I mean, no, but I'm just saying that anything that was ever published under a DC imprint, just being passed on by Warner Brothers is weird to me. Especially something as cultishly popular as literally anything Neil Gaiman puts out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the fans of Sandman are going to complain because, that's what they do. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of difficult of a thing to really.
Yeah.
Then again, with DC and Warner Brothers out of the picture, maybe Gaiman will actually be able to extract his vision of things the way it should be.
I don't know.
Okay, what we do know is he's signing off on everything, so...
Well, there you go.
That's what I'm saying, is maybe there's a chance, it's like, instead of having so much network interference from Netflix...
Right.
Maybe...
We'll see what happens there. I mean...
Yeah.
It could go either way.
Yeah.
Let's see, we got the Injustice movie.
It's like, I think a lot of people are tired of this whole subgenre with Superman of, oh my god, Lois Lane is dead. Superman has to turn evil as a result.
I don't care if Richard isn't the Joker, then I don't give a damn.
I think they still don't think or whatever, either don't think they can or don't want to make a Superman movie where Superman is Superman.
Or as I like to call him, JoJo Joker.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they don't want Superman to be likable for some ungodly reason. Now, maybe that CW show that they have is going to change that, hopefully. But at the same time, it's like they don't want to be. They won't want to have a Superman movie where he's not somewhat of a moody, dark figure.
Yeah. Let's see. Just speeding through some other highlights here. Harley Quinn season 3 was shown off.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that.
Yeah.
Posted on Twitter.
Yeah. It is in animatic form, so it's clearly far ways out. Like they say, sometime in 2022. I'd expect it like fall.
Summer, fall.
They didn't have any completed animation, really. Like that being said, the Eat, Bang, Kill tour that they're hyping in season 3 is actually going on right now in a spin-off comic series, which is a 6-issue, and I think it's up to issue 3.
Yeah.
But, I'm not sure how much is going to actually tie into season 3. But like I said, it's going on right now. Let's see, we got Batman Caped Crusader, which is being hyped up as the spiritual successor of Batman the Animated Series. And they even got Bruce Timm on this. They got James Tucker, who's a producer on the Batman movie. And J.J. Abrams. I
mean, someone had to.
There's got to be some kind of movie he can actually fucking make.
It's not a movie; it's a television series.
I mean, it's a case of someone has to be in there to get that.
Just keep his fucking mystery boxes away from this. I'm sick of them.
Look, J.J. Abrams can make a television series. What he can't do is finish a television series.
Yes.
But for those of us diehard holdouts who absolutely adored Fringe, I'm not so sold on Lost, but it's like for those of us who adored Fringe, and you got to keep something else in mind, that J.J. Abrams was at his height when he was working with Orci and Kurtzman, and Orci and Kurtzman have said that they will never collaborate together on television again. Hawaii Five-0 was their last hurrah. And they said they'll work together on movies. They'll work together on stuff, but for some reason they don't want to have anything to do with each other on television, and that's why Robert Orci is not involved in Star Trek.
Yeah, television is a longer commitment.
Yeah.
No, but it was just weird that they won't collaborate. Not even a one-off. Just.
I think they probably just are done with television. I mean, because again, you said the last thing was the Hawaii Five-0 remake series. That was on the air. What?
2010. 2010. Yeah. It ran 10 seasons. The original series ran slightly longer, but ran 9 or 10 seasons.
It's still it's like 10 seasons, like 11, 12 years. I mean,
in modern television, modern television, that's quite the feat because look at how many shows just vanished after the writers' strike in 2007, 2008.
Yeah, Yeah, you could probably argue that the reason why it was on so long is because it was on CBS, which is a network that really likes to milk everything they can.
Well, I mean, they are bringing back CSI Vegas, but let's also be honest with something. Law and Order season 21 is coming.
Yeah. Well, true, but but that's a situation of
Reviving old franchises is not something unique to CBS.
No, but no, it's not a case of reviving series. It's more like having existing franchises be milked all the way worth.
Well, okay, then let's talk about that for a second. I mean, NBC really invented that. The whole reason that we got Star Trek: The Animated Series was because they re-examined the Nielsen numbers and realized that Star Trek was actually way more successful than they gave it credit for being, and commissioned a new series. And Gene Roddenberry said, "Well, we burned all the sets," and they're like, "What about animation?" So that was that, and then there's the whole Sanford and Sons 2 spin-offs.
Well, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there.
I'm just saying.
Those were one-offs, and and they were screwed over by the fact that people were done with it, and when that became clear, they quickly got off it.
Right, but I'm just saying that as far as milking franchises to death, CSI wasn't the first one.
I mean, and if we want to talk about milking franchises, CBS was good at that too. The Golden Palace. Mm-hmm. So
I'm just saying the Law and Order franchise has spawned now 14 additional shows.
Yeah, well,
the entire Chicago series.
Well, that's a case. Well, that's a case of simply adding on to an individual producer, not necessarily a franchise with the Chicago stuff.
The Chicago stuff is tied to Law and Order. It's in the same continuity. Dick Wolf has said so explicitly.
Huh.
As was Conviction and a number of other shows that were spun.
Undercover?
New York Undercover. Thank you.
Of course, but again, it's like that's basically one producer with all of this stuff here. We're talking about multiple franchises with multiple producing heads over at CBS over here.
Fair enough.
I mean, you've got NCIS and CSI. What else? What else are we talking about here?
I mean,
huh?
Norman Lear. Yeah. I mean, look. Yeah.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious what differentiation you're making here. You've got two franchises set in the same continuity, and then on the other side you've got.
Enough. Okay, fair enough.
Anyway,
anyway,
the only difference between NBC and CBS right now is that CBS put two franchises in two separate continuities, milked them to death, and that NBC has just made one ginormous franchise that they've been milking to death.
Okay, fair enough. Anyhow,
these aren't the Stephen Bochco / David E. Kelly days.
Yeah. Anyway,
which was kind of ABC's thing.
Yeah.
Most unexpected, but most favorable to me news was the immediate release of the 4th season of Young Justice, Phantoms. One of the best DC shows ever produced, and if you haven't watched it, go do so now. I'm still stunned that a Greg Weisman project has made it to season 4. I know it was a long way between season 2 and season 3, but it's doing a lot better than Gargoyles is or Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I know he was attached to Witch, but exception, not the rule.
Yeah. But hey, he got that season 3.
Yeah, and he's got a season 4. I'm like, season 5 hasn't been confirmed yet, but season 4 just started, so.
If he gets to season 5, that'll be a triumph for him.
And Young Justice has a way of being very current in a good way, and also it's also a very sad way because this season's tackling fantastical but still racism. Young Justice tackles a lot of heavy subjects.
Right.
Anyway, and the Batman trailer dropped. And
I'm still having trouble seeing. I'm still having trouble seeing Andy as
Andy Serkis as Alfred.
Alfred. Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, I can kind of see it, but I'm a little weirded out by it.
I'm having trouble with the fact that this franchise can't seem to get away from Christopher Nolan. Like,
I mean, look, it was the most successful Batman movie in like 25 years. I mean, you can't. I mean, it works. Like,
I mean, I guess
I don't know about 25 years. I mean, the original Batman was what 1989, and
no, I mean, but like
Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins was 2005.
No, I mean we're talking about like the big one was like the Dark Knight. Batman Begins was like one. Well, Batman Begins was one thing. The Dark Knight is what really got this thing rolling. Come on, Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. Those two were the movies that were the big ones. Nobody really talks about Batman Begins.
Nobody talks about the third Nolan Batman movie either. You're the first person I've heard in like the last 6 years that has mentioned it by full name.
Yeah, well, probably, but I put them. But notice I put Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises together.
I wouldn't do that. The Dark Knight was pretty much a standalone iconic film. It's kind of like The Empire Strikes Back in that it's this weird confluence of events within a trilogy that just works on its own.
I think everybody thinks of Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises as two movies. I don't think they'd talk about Batman Begins in the same.
No, but I'm saying I would put 1 and 3 in the same category as.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
It's just the third film was not iconic. I'm
not saying it's iconic.
Like tell me one thing about Dark Knight Rises that was so amazing that people will be talking about it for decades.
No, I'm not. I'm just putting them in the same two because it has the Dark Knight in the title. You know.
Yeah, but again, I would.
Nobody talks about the second. Everybody talks about the first. I get it.
Yeah, I would call that a causality. I would call that a causality without causation. You know, that would be kind of a coincidence. That it's like, well, we couldn't really think of a good title, and there's a fucking cast of thousands in this film, and we don't really focus on anything, and all the bad memes come from this movie. You know.
I mean, I'm not trying to put that second film on a pedestal. It's just that it's part of the freaking. It's part of the freaking deal. I mean, it's not. It's nowhere near the level of the Dark Knight. I'm not saying that at all.
No, but when people think of Christopher Nolan Batman, they don't think of the first and third film. They only think of that second film.
No.
And they grudgingly put the other two in there. I mean, let's face it, The Dark Knight Rises is very much the Return of the Jedi in terms of the quality of the Nolan films. You know, the first one was a fun little romp, and it kind of got things started, and then the second one was like, oh shit, and then the third one was just like, yeah, it's an ending, I guess.
Yeah, it's like no, it's more like, man, and then whoa, what the hell, and then oh right, that's what. Okay.
Is it weird that I like Return of the Jedi like more than Empire Strikes Back?
I'm not sure I'd admit that on the air. I'm just saying. In fairness, I'm not sure I would admit that on the air.
Anyway, we should probably wrap this up for the.
I mean, if for no other reason than the second act is 62 minutes.
In fairness, I haven't seen it in a
It's
while,
a movie unto itself.
Anyhow,
if they cut out the entire middle 62 minutes, you lose nothing.
Anyhow, let's.
Except for some creepy revelations.
Anyhow, let's. I think we're good for this week.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyhow.
In studio news, we now have a 3D model of the main character of Galahad. So that's going to be exciting. Morgan Berry, of course, will be the voice of Commodore Melissa Cobalt in our upcoming film. And I guess the only other thing I really have to say is tune in tomorrow, and hopefully Galix and Mr. Sargent and Potato will join us, at least in chat, in spirit, and throw funny commentary at me that I will be forced to respond to on air. while I play more of The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. And this time I may actually complete a dungeon instead of running around the overworld going, I know this. Oh, I'm lost. For 2 hours. That's what happened last week. Was I spent 2 hours running around going, it's on the tip of my fingers. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's just right on the end of my nose. And if I just keep going this way, no, I went this way. No, I went this way. No, I went this way. I'm lost. Well, let's go to the guide.
Minish Cap is a little bit twisty-turny.
Yeah, and as I was explaining, there's a lot of stuff folded into the game that even though you don't have a lot of dungeons, the amount of shifting back and forth between the Minish world and the regular world kind of offsets that a little bit and effectively makes the overworld into like 19 mini dungeons with puzzles and traps and things you got to figure out, several of which actually lock you out of proceeding in the plot. And they are not intuitive. Let's match kinstones with some old bastard up on a mountain. Oh, that was plot relevant. Who knew?
Yep, sometimes that is.
Anyhow.
Yep, that's like I talked to that guy and matched like 27 stones with him already. Yeah, but he has another that unlocks after you unlock this dungeon. Oh, shit. Yeah, not the kind of thing you would immediately expect. So we'll have more of that hilarity tomorrow. Hopefully between 6 and 6:30. I'm aiming for a sort of start window. I got a lot of money I got to make before the electric bill is due on the 26th, and still have a negative bank account. So anybody who wants to follow, subscribe, chip us a donation, I'm not too proud to ask for it. Sadly, there's no special promotions this month, but we really would enjoy your support, and I'd like to be able to give more of this kind of original content for your entertainment. So, if that's at all possible, if it's within your budget, join us. But that's it for this week's edition of Last News Desk on the Left. I am your host, Mac Paladin. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, kids.
Mask up and backs up, y'all.